Goodness comes and evil goes.
Kimunga Ukombozi, Kimunga Ukombozi, Kimunga Ukombozi, divine liberty, divine liberation, divine freedom, and all that that will bring for African people wherever we happen to be on the face of this earth. Karibu, welcome. My name is Kwende, and today we're going to get into another important subject, and that subject is Marcus Garvey and the so-called Maroons. Now, Maroons is a term that can be heard throughout the islands of the so-called Caribbean, more accurately, more appropriately, more aptly, the islands of New Africa. And Maroons comes from a Spanish word, cimarron, which was applied as a derogatory term to African souls whom alien forces were not able to dominate and control. These are the African souls that would ascend to freedom, that would fight to be free, and would establish communities for themselves amidst all the horrors of enslavement, colonization, and a whole host of other ills. So cimarron is where the word maroon comes from. The uncontrollable ones, the wild ones. And that has come down to us from generation to generation and applied to specific communities within the island's African population. But the uncontrollable Africans were everywhere African souls were. And Marcus Garvey is an ascendant of these uncontrollable, quote unquote, Africans who sought to be free. To highlight this, I'm going to read from this important text. Highly recommended it is. It's called From Musa to Afrikan Fundamentalism, the African Spiritual Essence of Marcus Garvey. Highly recommended, and the link will be in the description below to obtain a copy for yourself, for a loved one, for a colleague, friend, associate, and again, highly recommended. In this book, penned by or authored by myself, is quoted an extract that gives some insight into the context from which Marcus Garvey emerges. And the extracted quote says the following: "One must remember that Mr. Garvey came from a Maroon background on the island of Jamaica in the Caribbean, where he was born on the 17th of August, 1887, in the Common Era. To Marcus and Sarah Garvey, Mr. Garvey Sr. was not a man of African or European-style Christianity. Instead, he held to his voodoo type African worship, which was typical of the African Maroons, who fought the British and won their right to independence on one end of the island in early 1739 of the Common Era. Religious devotion affected young Garvey Jr. to the point where at such an early age, he questioned Christianity's exclusively white colonialist control and its direct relationship to the British imperialist administrators of the British colony in Jamaica. So that's a quoted extract from a source, and again, you can read that in this very important book to get the whole context and the narrative around that. Maroon societies, uncontrollable by foreign forces or alien forces of anti-African agency, were not exclusive to the islands. And so in another extract, we can see how Maroon societies were spread throughout the diaspora. Let's read another section from this work. And another quoted passage articulates the following. There is evidence of the establishment of at least 50 Maroon communities between 1672 and 1864 with varying lifespans. These communities existed in the forest, mountain, and swampy regions of several states, i.e., Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. However, the most notable and largest communities existed among the Virginia, North Carolina border and in Florida. These Maroons sought in varying ways to duplicate the African societies, raised crops and animals and fowl, maintained families with African kingship patterns. So so-called Maroon societies existed throughout the Americas, wherever Africans became self-determined or retained their self-determinedness to bring about self-governed reality for themselves, as mirrored in the African populations throughout the islands. So wherever African people were, African souls rose and established their own spheres of living. They established autonomy for themselves, self-sufficiency. And these kinds of communities were replete across the diaspora. This is often what is not spoken about. It is from this people, it is from this spirit to be free, to be self-determining, to be self-governing, that the great and mighty Marcus Garvey emerges, is brought into existence. And there are lessons in that can surely inform African life in the now. So with that food for thought, and surely it is, Food for thought. Kimunga Ukombozi, Kimunga Ukombozi, Kimunga Ukombozi. Divine liberty, divine liberation, divine freedom, and all that that will bring for African people wherever we happen to be on the face of this earth.
The cry is raised all over the world of Canada for the Canadians, of America for the Americans, of England for the English, of France for the French, of Germany for the Germans. Do you take it unreasonable that we the blacks of the world should raise the cry of Africa for the Africans?